How to Win Friends and Influence People, by Dale Carnegie. This book will help you break out of your mental rut, conceive new ideas and discover new ambitions, make friends quickly and easily, increase your popularity, get others to think like you, increase your influence and prestige, preserve pleasant human relationships, become a better speaker and conversationalist, awaken enthusiasm among your associates. In the book, the author shows us that there are fundamental techniques for dealing with others. Rule number 1. Don't criticize, condemn or complain. Remember that criticism is useless, because it puts the person on the defensive and usually causes him to try to justify himself. Criticism is dangerous, because it hurts the person's pride and sense of importance and arouses resentment. Therefore, the only thing we will gain is enemies. Once, the boss of a construction company wanted his employees to wear hard hats, but he ordered them to do so with great authority and by threatening them. Therefore, they never listened to him until he decided to change tactics. He told them that their mission was to protect them from injury and suggested to put them on, instead of an overbearing tone. That way they would not have resentments and emotional tensions. Rule number 2. Show honest and sincere appreciation. Professor John Dewey says that the deepest desire of human nature is the desire to be important. There lies an unfailing and persistent human thirst, and the few individuals who honestly satisfy this need will be able to hold others in the palm of their hand. Many people have a great thirst for importance, so others must be made to feel important. For example, Charles Schwab worked with Andrew Carnegie and was paid over $1 million a year. But this was not because he knew how to do a better job, but because of his ability to deal with people, to arouse enthusiasm in them and encourage them to be better. And those were his incentives for people to get to work and feel their best. So, sincere praise has to come from the heart to be well received. The third and final technique is to awaken in others. Dale Carnegie tells us that the only way to influence others is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it. You cannot satisfy people with what they don't want. For example, if what a father doesn't want is for his son to smoke, he doesn't have to talk to him about what the father wants. He can show him instead that cigarettes may keep him from making the school sports team, or that he won't make a 100-meter dash, and he assures him that it works and he will quit smoking or at least cut down on the amount he smokes. That's why you have to take other people's perceptions very much into account and see things from that point of view as your own. So let's not waste time talking about our problems. Let's understand others. That's why many salespeople fail to make a lot of sales, because they sometimes don't understand the other person who doesn't need their product. On the other hand, if the salesperson demonstrates that we need the product, they don't have to try hard to sell us anything. He tells us that there are 6 fundamental ways to please others. Rule number 1 is to take a sincere interest in others. Have you ever noticed that a dog makes a living just by showing his affection for his owner? Every time we go out, he stays at the door doing whatever he can or watching to make sure we don't leave. And when we come back, he's the only one who comes running faster to lick you. And he doesn't do it selfishly. Dale tells us that you can win more friends in 2 months by taking a real interest in others than you can win in 2 years when you try to interest others in yourself. One time a salesperson was going to visit the company's customers to keep accounts. One of these was a pharmacy and he was always talking about his products. And one day the boss told him she was no longer interested in buying them. She went to her destination in a very depressed mood. However, he came back to try to fix it, and what a surprise! The boss received him very well and ordered him an order of accounts that exceeded the usual. And he, surprised, asked him what had happened. And the boss told him that he had never met anyone who cared about his employees. So he deserved the buyout for that amount. So never forget that a genuine interest in another person is the most important quality of a salesperson, or really anyone, can have. So, if we want to get friends, let's dedicate ourselves to doing things for others, things that require time, energy and altruism. And not only that, but let's greet others with animation and enthusiasm so that they realize that their presence is pleasant. Remember that we care about others when they care about us. Rule number 2. Smile. Dale Carnegie tells us that the expression on a face is more important than the clothes we wear. Actions speak louder than words, and what a smile expresses is, "I like you. You make me happy, and I'm glad to see you." People who smile tend to work, teach, and sell more effectively. That's why teaching is much more effective encouragement than punishment. You have to enjoy yourself when you meet people, if you want others to have a good time when they are with you. To those who come to you with complaints or protests, respond to them with a good attitude and smile while listening, and you will find that it is easier to fix things. So a smile costs nothing, but creates a lot. Smile. Rule number 3: remember that for every person their name is the sweetest and most important sound in any language. The name is something unique to every person and sounds like a subtle and very effective compliment. Whenever you meet a person, find out his or her full name. So when you call him, speak to him by his name. Remember that many of the buildings at most universities are named after those who contributed donations for construction. Therefore, one's name is the most important of all names, and it pleases us to see someone remind us of it, and it feels like it creates a deeper connection. So when you strike up a conversation with someone, make sure you remember their name first before you think of the next topic to talk to them about, as it will serve you better the rest of the conversation. Rule number 4. Be a good listener. Encourage people to talk about themselves. One day Carnegie was invited to a friend's house and found a lady sitting next to him. She discovered that he worked with a very famous young man, so she asked him to tell her about his experiences with him and the trips he had taken. But as she sat down, she said that she had traveled to Africa, and he exclaimed that it was very interesting. At that moment, the girl interrupted and stayed talking about Africa for about 40 minutes. But he hadn't said a word. All she was looking for was an interested listener. When he finished, she said he was an excellent conversationalist, and he finished by saying that it had been a pleasant experience to talk about it. A very easy way to become a good conversationalist is to pay exclusive attention to the person speaking. That's why so many salespeople fail to make sales, because instead of letting buyers talk and express what they want, they spend their time talking about something that doesn't interest the person. Famous men have said that they prefer good listeners to good talkers, but that the ability to listen seems rarer than any other human quality. To be heard and understood is what the irritated customer or the dissatisfied employee wants. Remember that the person who talks only about himself thinks only of himself. To be interesting, you have to be interested. Rule number 5. Always talk about what interests others. Everyone who visited the President Roosevelt was amazed by the diversity of his knowledge. Whether it was a cowboy or a politician who visited him, he always knew what to talk about. But this was because whenever he was expecting a visitor, he would stay late into the night before his arrival, preparing himself on the subject he knew the expected guest would be interested in. That's how he always had the best topics of conversation when he was with them. That's why giving yourself the task of researching even a little bit on the topic of what others like to talk about is something that will definitely attract a lot of people, and they will want to spend a lot of time with you. So before you strike up a new conversation with someone, make sure you at least do a little research to approach the conversation. Rule number 6. Make the other person feel important, and do it sincerely. When you're with someone, you have to say something nice, but not about you, about them. Ask yourself, what is there about him that you can honestly admire? For example, when you see an employee who doesn't enjoy his work, tell him that you wish you had hair like his, or that he looks great in the outfit he has, and then he will be pleased and may even be modest. Therefore, you will instantly leave him with a very pleasant feeling. Remember that the desire to be important is the deepest impulse that animates the human character. Ralph W. Emerson said, "Every man I meet is superior to me in some sense, and in that sense I can learn from him." So tell people about themselves and they will listen to you for hours. Rule number 7. The only way to get out of an argument is to avoid it. Remember what Benjamin Franklin says: if you argue, fight, and contradict, you may sometimes achieve a triumph. But it would be an empty triumph, because you will never get any goodwill from your opponent. As the rule says, there is only one way to get the best out of an argument, and that is to avoid it, because the only thing the winner will get is to hurt the other's pride. Rule number 8. Show respect for the opinions of others. Never tell a person that he or she is wrong. Remember that even you cannot be sure of what you say many times. So why tell others that they are wrong? Never start by announcing, "I am going to prove to you that that is wrong," because that is like saying, "I am smarter than you." And by telling you one or two things, it will change your mind. Socrates once said, "I only know that I know nothing." Very wise words. And more important, never say it in front of important people, because it will kill their pride and generate resentment. And if it is really necessary to say that the other is wrong, suggest to him, "As you can tell, and sometimes I am often wrong, but I think it is better this other thing." So it is less direct and more tactful. Rule number 8. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. There is a certain degree of satisfaction in having the courage to admit one's mistakes. Any fool can try to defend his mistakes, and almost all fools do. And try to justify yourself for some mistake you made. This is something we often do, but it must be corrected immediately and with emphasis in order to be effective. Rule number 9. Start out friendly. If you get irritated and say a few things to the other person, you vent your feelings. But what about the other person? What's his fault? If a man's heart is full of bad feelings against another man, he can't draw you into his way of thinking at all. That is why nagging parents should understand that no one likes to change his mind, but it is possible to lead the other person to it. If we are kind, once an engineer wanted to have the rent of his apartment lowered, so he sent a letter to the landlord saying that he would leave it as soon as the lease expired. And as soon as the landlord of the apartment received the lease, he went to see him immediately. But the tenant did not greet him angrily, but told him that it was an excellent apartment. He complimented him and added that he would like to stay in the apartment, but his budget was not enough. It is evident that the owner had never received such treatment from a tenant before, and began to tell him of other difficulties. He commented that he was always getting a lot of letters insulting him, or that there were tenants who didn't want to pay him on time. And he said it was a comfort to have a tenant like him. So, without his saying anything else, the landlord offered to reduce the rent to the price he wanted. Rule number 10. Get the other person to say yes immediately. When talking to someone, don't start by discussing things you disagree with each other about. Start by touching and keep highlighting things you agree on. Get the other person to say yes right from the start and keep him away from saying no. Once a man came to a bank to open a new account, and when filling out the form he refused to fill out the items that were important and that without them the account could not be opened. But instead of forcing the man to give him that information, he decided to talk about what the customer wanted, not what the bank wanted. And above all, he was able to get him to say yes. From the beginning he told him things like this: "Suppose you have money in this bank when you die. Wouldn't you like me to transfer the money to your family?" The man said yes. Then he asked him again, "Wouldn't it then be a good idea for you to give us the name of your family so that, in the event of your death, we can fulfill your wishes?" And the man again said yes. And not only that, but he softened and changed his attitude, leaving the data without hesitation. Rule number 11. Allow the other person to do most of the talking whenever you talk to another person and disagree with them. I know you will be tempted to interrupt her, but don't. It's dangerous. Better to understand her. The truth is, our friends would rather tell us about their exploits than listen to us talk about ours. And when we try to change another person, we try to make them believe that we are right, so they will feel inferior, and will bring some resentment. Rule number 12. Let the other person feel that the idea is theirs. One day a hospital was built and set out to be equipped with X-rays. Therefore, all the salesmen who came in defended the advantages of their equipment. But one day a younger salesman came and left him a letter saying that they would be very grateful if he would give them some time to study and give them the impressions about the form and operation of the devices they had. So the buyer was flattered because he had never had a salesman come to him who would do that, and he felt that if he bought the equipment it was going to be his idea. So he decided to buy it and ordered it to be installed in the hospital. Rule number 13. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Is there a reason why the other person thinks and proceeds as he does? Discover the hidden reason, and you will have the key to their actions and personality. So the next time you ask someone to buy your product or contribute to a charity, close your eyes and try to see it from the other person's point of view, and ask yourself why this person wants to do it. This will take time, but it will help you make friends and get better results. And that's it for the video of today. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel to watch more videos like this, and remember, hard work is the key to success.